In this video, I'm responding to the prompt, what are some of the roles that music plays in everyday life? And how does music play such roles? The basis of my exploration was week 3's reading by Tia Denora, Music as a Technology of Self. Denora is a professor of sociology, so her paper understands music through a social lens. The behaviours that explain why or how people interact. But that being said, it's through her description of the unitary individual or the importance of self, her notion of music as a reflexive process really makes sense. Basically, she argues that music is inherently intimate and that by looking at how people use it on one-on-one, its roles in everyday life are revealed. So let's start with self-programming. Denora discusses a music study that asks subjective questions to participants. One such participant, Lucy, states that music has transformative powers. It does things, it changes things, it makes things happen. Lucy demonstrates an awareness of music's ability to influence, not in the physical sense of conjuring objects and strange, but altering or encouraging emotional changes as a means for creating self-conceptual state, like hyping yourself up before a big game. Latoya and Denora continue. Nearly everyone whom we spoke exhibited considerable awareness about the music they needed to hear, basically saying that not only were people able to identify music that changed their emotional state, they were also able to use it to schedule routine. I want to point to the example of the study genre on Spotify. People typically use this to enhance focus in an active way. There's a couple of different playlists, lo-fi, classical, EDM, to induce a steady flow of consciousness when you're writing a script and shooting a vlog hours before it is due. I relate the idea of using a study playlist to classical conditioning, a psychological theory that explains how the associations between stimuli can transfer. The paper, Efficacy of Music Therapy, talks about this within a medicinal context, so patients who are about to undergo surgery or patients who have just completed a surgery and they use music to calm and reduce the level of cortisol, which is stress. It's the same idea, which is suggesting and reinforcing meanings through music and it having a visible effect on you. So in other words, self-programming. Here's another category, reflection and rumination. Music was discussed as a tool of reflection throughout Denora's essay. She highlights the example of the mirror and the stage, and the idea that music can be used for aesthetic reflexivity, just thinking about your actions and then changing them. In the paper, a participant refers to an experience where she hears music that her deceased father listened to. She was left sad, because she couldn't turn it off, so she let it play. It acted as a virtual means for constructing or expressing emotion. I read this paper about maladaptive responses to music by Garrido and Schubert. They write that rumination can be understood as an involuntary focus on negative and pessimistic thoughts. The positive version of this is that reflective private self-attentiveness is the disposition and capacity to reflect and examine the self. So they state that using music for reflection may provide opportunities for reappraisal or reinterpreting events, that self-programming is more of a directed approach saying, hey, I want to do this thing, whereas reflection and rumination can be less directed. It can be induced by just a random song that plays. And I really think that these two instances, well, not the importance, the benefits of controlled consumption. So far we've approached music through an individual lens, but what are groups of people if not individuals together? One of my favourite papers for this assignment, Genres as Social Affect, focused on Spotify playlists and how they're used. Spotify being a new media approach to music distribution. The TLDR is that the authors argue that playlists function as genres. It also has the addition of community behaviours, because remember, Denora focused on the one-to-one effect of music, the intimacy. But when you pair this with Berlant's notion of the intimate public, it's the idea that playlists form the basis of a collective individual experience. Sharing these playlists is like sharing an experience that can be intimate. I made a playlist for a girl I liked in year 10 and her boyfriend still harasses me online. He does not know that I know that it's him. But I think this really brings us back to the idea of the mirror and the stage. Music is a vehicle for culture and showing who you are. McFerrin's paper focuses on the stage aspect of music, but mainly in the context of teenagers. My favourite part about it is the description of music taste as like a magpie's expression of identity, where they're just picking apart sounds that are all, trying to build their nest. Teenagers, of course, go through a massive period of identity shifts. They use music not just to reflect themselves, try new personalities. In this vlog, I discussed 4 separate functions of music: self-programming, reflection, socialization, and expression.